The Galactic Military Academy's training hall fell silent as the Vraxian combat instructor, Kreltak, circled around Edward Chen like a predator assessing prey. His forearms flexed, each one capable of crushing steel, while his chitinous exoskeleton gleamed under the artificial lights. The other cadets, a mixture of species from across the Federation, watched with barely concealed amusement. Deathworlder, Kreltak hissed, his translator rendering the word with particular venom. Your kind should not be here. You are fragile, slow, weak. Edward stood at attention, his human frame seeming almost comically small compared to the 8-foot insectoid instructor. But his eyes remained steady, unflinching. Permission to speak, sir? Denied. Kreltak, as mandibles clicked in what passed for Vraxian laughter. You will demonstrate hand-to-hand combat against Cadet Thornax. Show us what humanity has to offer. A massive Gorlian stepped forward, 7 feet of muscle and bioengineered armor plating. Thornax grinned, revealing rows of crystalline teeth. In the 3 months since the Academy had begun accepting humans, he'd hospitalized 2 of them. The medics had worked overtime. Edward bowed respectfully and took his position on the mat. Across the hall, Amelia Rodriguez watched from the observation deck, her jaw tight. She'd arrived at the Academy on the same transport as Edward, one of only 15 humans among 3,000 cadets. They'd bonded over shared ration packs and the constant, grinding prejudice that came with being from Earth, a planet the rest of the galaxy called a death world, with a mixture of fear and contempt. Your friend's about to learn a hard lesson, muttered Zixara, a Pelthian cadet whose tentacles writhed nervously. Thornax won't hold back. Good, Amelia replied quietly. Neither will Edward. The match began. Thornax charged immediately, a battering ram of genetically enhanced muscle. Edward sidestepped with a fluidity that seemed impossible given human physiology. The Gorlian's fist cratered the mat where Edward had stood milliseconds before. Kreltak's mandibles stopped clicking. Edward didn't counterattack. He simply moved, flowing around Thornax's strikes, like water around stone. The Gorlian roared in frustration, launching a combination that would have pulverized a bulkhead. Edward ducked, weaved, and rolled, never in the same place twice. Fight back, coward. Thornax bellowed. I'm studying, Edward said calmly, and Amelia smiled despite herself. That was pure Edward, analytical, patient, always thinking 3 steps ahead. The Gorlian's next punch was sloppy, telegraphed by fatigue. Edward finally struck. It wasn't flashy. A simple palm strike to Thornax's elbow joint, precisely angled to hyperextend it. The Gorlian's arm buckled. Before he could recover, Edward swept his legs, all 400 pounds of him, and the cadet crashed to the mat. With a thunderous impact, Edward stepped back, breathing hard but controlled. Yield, sir. Thornax tried to rise, but his arm wouldn't support his weight. He slammed the mat twice in surrender. The training hall erupted in shocked whispers. Kreltak's compound eyes widened. Impossible, the instructor breathed. Humans are Class 7 strength, limited endurance, fragile skeletal structure. May I speak now, sir? Edward interrupted, still at attention. Kreltak nodded mutely. You're right about our specifications, Edward said. Humans are weaker than Gorlians, slower than Vraxians. We don't have natural armor like the Kresh or regeneration like the Pelthi. He paused. But we come from a planet where everything is trying to kill us, where apex predators hunt in packs, where microorganisms wage constant war in our bodies, where we evolved not as the strongest or fastest, but as the most adaptable. He gestured to Thornax, who was being helped to his feet by medics. I didn't beat him with strength. I used leverage, timing, and the fact that every human child learns to fall without breaking, because our gravity is 0.98 g, one of the highest in the Federation. Amelia descended from the observation deck, her boots echoing in the silent hall. She'd tied her dark hair back, and her academy uniform bore the scorch marks from yesterday's 0G firefight exercise, another event where the fragile humans had excelled. Sir, she addressed Kreltak. Permission to demonstrate something? The instructor, still processing Edward's victory, waved a hand absently. Amelia walked to the weapons rack and selected a standard issue rifle designed for species with average Federation physiology. Then she adjusted the gravity field around the training mat to 1.2 Gs. 20% above galactic standard. The other cadets gasped as the increased weight pressed down on them. Zixara collapsed immediately, her tentacles unable to support her mass. Thornax dropped to one knee, struggling. Amelia shouldered the rifle and fired at 6 holographic targets in rapid succession. Perfect hits, every one. She wasn't even breathing hard. Earth's gravity is 0.98, she said, lowering the weapon. We've been training in the equivalent of a low-grav environment since we arrived. Every step we take here is lighter. Every movement, easier. We're not weak, instructor. We're just getting started. She looked at the assembled cadets, dozens of species, each one supposedly superior to humanity in some measurable way. My people hunted megafauna with sharpened sticks. We survived ice ages and plagues. We turned a death world into a garden through sheer stubbornness. And now we're here. Edward joined her, standing shoulder to shoulder. Two humans, unremarkable by Federation standards, who'd just rewritten what their classmates thought possible. Kreltak's mandibles clicked slowly, a sign of deep thought among Vraxians. I may have been premature in my assessment, he admitted. What else should we know about Deathworlders? Edward and Amelia exchanged glances. They thought about Earth's martial arts traditions spanning millennia, the human capacity for adrenaline-fueled feats of impossible strength, the way their species thrived on adversity, growing stronger with each challenge. Sir, Edward said with a slight smile, I think it's better if we show you, over the following months. Humanity's reputation at the Academy shifted. The fragile Deathworlders became known for their unpredictability, their refusal to quit, and their disturbing tendency to turn disadvantage into weapons. They excelled in survival scenarios that broke other species. They thrived under pressure that would crush stronger cadets. And whenever someone asked what happened when you challenged a Deathworld cadet, the answer was always the same. You learned why humanity had earned its place among the stars.